All right, fellas, it's the big dog time to get loose, man. Back for day 2 of our Savage Roundtable. Man, let's rock this thing, man. Let's get it going. So what I want to do is I kind of want to break down to you guys the process of what I do, how I do what I do, okay? So CACI, Commitment Academics Character Integrity, is a mentoring program that focuses on our youth basically from the ages of 12 to 18, okay? Has nothing to do with athletics, has everything to do with social, has everything to do with their mental well-being. One of the terms I like to use is mess. I like to help them clean up that mess. Mental, emotional, social, spiritual. Once we get to that level, then it's easier for the guys to kind of focus and do what needs to be done. So what helps me with that is I got character lessons. So we go through character lessons in our sessions. And right now I got 32 character lessons. But what's key about the character lessons is my first quadrant. I had to give it a name because without this quadrant, it's a struggle for us to grow, okay? The first one is character lesson number 1. I tell them we got to focus on self-accountability. You have to focus on your self-accountability. You hear me all weekend talk about foundation and relationship, okay? The first quadrant is my foundation. That's how we build that particular relationship with them. The first thing that they have to do is accept self-accountability, which y'all know, living in the same world that we do, that it's very hard for somebody. We always trying to put the blame on someone else, okay? The second one is you got to create a vision. So once you establish self-accountability, you look in that mirror and you say, you know what? This is who I am. This is the problem that I have. This is what needs to be fixed. And so once you truly embrace that, not accept it, because if we accept it, we're still not doing anything about it. But once we embrace it, now we're ready to take on that action to get it going, which is what takes us to a vision. Now, what is the vision? What is it that we're going to do that's going to put us in a position to become a better individual? Okay? Which takes us to the third one, core values. Core values, what I like to call it, is your non-negotiables. There are certain things in life that no matter what the circumstances are, you got to say, no, I'm not doing it. Why? Because that's a non-negotiable for me. That is a non-negotiable for me. I am not, under any circumstances, going to do X, Y, Z. And they say, okay, then we got to go to ABC. All right, let's do that. Okay? And then the fourth one, you heard me say this. This is where we are, Brax. Right now, we're about to start getting a return on your investment. As a head coach, we're about to get a return on your investment. Okay? Trail, we've been talking all weekend about what decisions need to be made. It's time to get a return on investment. So if you really put those in order, again, first quadrant, these are the only 4 out of my 32 that I have to do in order. All of the other character lessons you can put them in any kind of order. You can do them 2 days a week, once a week, however you want to spend it. But these 4 have to be done in order because that's setting the precedent of what you're trying to create. Self-accountability. Look that individual in the eye, okay? That young man, that young lady, look them in the eye and say, look, here's what's going on. You have to accept that this is where you are, okay? Now, the vision. What are we about to do to change that? What are we about to do to fix that? Got to make that adjustment, okay? Then the third one, core values. When you create that vision, what is your non-negotiable? If you're a partying person and you say, you know what, I love to party, we got to make a business decision. We have to make an executive decision. If you partying is part of your Achilles heel, now we got to make an executive decision, okay? And then the return on investment. Return on investment. All right, I put all of these things in order. I'm a better person. I am growing. Now, I need to see and reap the benefits of what I'm trying to do. Okay? That makes sense. So that is the precedent of how I run my character lessons, all right? Now we're about to have some fun, okay? The character lesson that we rocking today is peers versus parents. Yeah, okay? Who has the greater influence? Who has the greater influence? Okay? So think about it from this perspective. We can have children and we can say, okay, build, educate, create, give them confidence, give them all the type of training, the nurturing that we can. The bottom line is when they leave home, they still got to make decisions on what they're going to do. And what do they base those decisions on? Okay? So, spiritual brain teasing. Here's the biggest thing that I'm truly thankful of. So as I put these character lessons together, as I'm rocking the character lessons, what I started doing was, as I'm doing the research and the information, I actually added a biblical scripture to go with those particular character lessons. So it's kind of like setting the narrative, or kind of like praying right before you go in the field of battle, okay? Praying before you walk into that office. Praying before you walk into that school as an educator or an administrator. Praying before you go into your company as an entrepreneur. You say that prayer. So I take a prayer that's very synonymous with what that particular character lesson is. And so with peers versus parents, man, ain't nothing better than Ephesians 6:1-4. Okay? So when we go there, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and your mother. We hear it all the time, and we know that's the first commandment. Honor your parents, okay? All right? That it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. A lot of times kids think that, okay, if I honor my mom and my dad, that means I'm going to live a long life. It's not just about living. It's about how you live, okay? So I take that into consideration when we're talking about this character lesson, okay? Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. That section right there humbled me. And here's why. Because I consider myself the big dog. I'm a big dog, okay? 1 son, 3 daughters. I leave up to their mother to do all of the, and at one point, I was that person. I didn't give you the extra and another thing lecture that the moms do. And another thing, I didn't do that, but I did way more talking than I did executing consequences. And then what I learned was that was taking a lot off of me, because that was giving me a high level of frustration more so than a high level of authority. And then when I read the scripture, do not provoke, okay? And again, having 1 son, daughters are a little different, but your son, which is the key point because he's a young man and you want that young man to become a young adult, I said, man, okay, I need to change some things. I need to figure some things out when it came to him. And so what I did with him was I increased my level of communication, very transparent, but I was quick with that trigger, the consequences. So what happened was most of the time as I started doing it, my octave started lowering. I was calm and cool, but that execution was real. And then I started seeing a major result in his change. And so, of course, as I'm looking at him change, then I started applying that to the classroom as a teacher, and I started applying that to the field as a coach. I started getting the same results. Are you a talker or are you a doer? And then the cool thing about us is this, with us all being males, we were 10, 11, 12, 13 before. And we know the master manipulators when it comes to mom and dad. And so that's what I had to do. I had to go back to understanding and remembering that. So this scripture right here was just perfect for what I was trying to get across and what I was trying to do, okay? I stole this from Shaq, man. Not this per se, but this quote. Man, when I read this, barbecue chicken. When you take this right here, every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once that child grows up. Depends on how you interpret that quote. Every child is an artist. So now think about what an artist is. An artist is an individual that is creative. And again, you go back to the Bible, all of us are blessed with a gift. All of us are blessed with a gift. The objective is to understand what your purpose is, what your calling is, and then you also have to say, okay, if this is my calling and this is your calling, Trail, then now what happens is I got to make your calling mesh with my calling. Then we got to go recruit Braxton. Then once we get Braxton, then we got to go get Coach Coleman. And then once we get Coach Coleman, we got to get free Trail, Josh. Yeah, we got to go get Josh and so on and so forth. So that's how we grow with it. A lot of us don't take that, which is why we're in this circle right now. which is why we're at this round table right now, because the focus is we're all artists and we got to remain artists, which means that we got to teach them to be artists. What is your gift? And I like the key point when it says, how do you remain an artist once you grow up? How many children? What did we just talk about this past weekend? I told you, young lady in my classroom, couple of young ladies in my classroom, they need a little extended time on their work. Then all of a sudden I found out that they ride horses. Very talented gift. The young man I told you about that was going out and he was shopping and selling his farm animals. Think about that. So that age, with that ability, that talent, that means that somebody has been working with them and teaching them. We have to get our youth to understand that blessing that you have, that's a gift. Now take that gift and let that gift carry you through life. And one of the things that I love to do when it comes to the artists is this. I teach them this. I tell them, take something that you love, that you can just do almost flawless. Think about the energy that you have to do that. Think about the energy that you spend to do that. That is a blessing. Now, let's take that same energy and then let's apply it to something that needs to be done. That's a self-discipline and that's a challenge. So our focus now becomes that's where we need to go with it, okay? So I like that. To be successful with our youth, one of the things I believe is we have to be very transparent and we have to be definitive. Think of it as a coach, both of you. How many times have y'all been in a situation where you talk to a child and you say, look, this is what I need you to do, okay? If that guy comes across, we need to cross face, all right? We need to hit him with a hump, a rip. We need to press. We need a heel line. We need to close. We need the wrong shoulder. And that kid says, I got you, coach. And that kid don't have a clue as to what you're saying. But they're going to look you in the face and they're going to give you that honest, I got you, coach, because what? They don't want to come off the field. They don't want to come off the field. So they're going to pretend that they know. So now, are you an effective leader? I don't want to call it coach. Are you an effective leader if you're communicating with our youth and there is no level of transparency? So what I do in my character lessons is I'm always giving definition. You're going to understand what it is that we're talking about. Then we're going to move forward as far as understanding what you need to do, okay? So again, not talking down to you guys, but I want to make sure that you understand. So we already know the rules, the definition of a parent. A parent, the lawful and natural father, mother of a person, okay? Peers, a peer, a person of the same rank or kind or your equal, okay? You guys are peers, all right? Myself, Coach Coleman, we're peers, okay? And so when you start talking that collectively, now, if we went into the coaching realm, we're coaching, all of us are coaching peers. So now you got to understand the divisiveness, the separation of how it is when it comes to who are you talking about and what's the situation going on, okay? Let's talk about the 6 stages. Let's talk about the 6 stages, okay, of the parental development process, okay? Stage 1, the preparation stage. This blueprint serves as a guide in the mindset of parents as they continue parental preparation and change it according to the basis of reality. Man, when I become a parent, when I become a parent, this is what I'm gonna do, this is how I'm gonna do it, this, that, and the other, okay? That's your preparation stage. It can be a stage of excitement, or it can be a stage of, man, we about to have a shorty. All right, man, we gotta prepare for this. It depends on who you are and what you're doing, okay? That is a crucial stage, a mental stage, because now you're about to bring a blessing into this world. And we got to prepare to raise that child the best up to our ability, okay? Changing expectations. The child is here. Now you begin to bond with the baby, with him or her. You're holding him or her. You rethink your priorities, You start rethinking your priorities and how much time you will be devoting to the child, but also how much time you will be devoting to yourself. You're a head coach. You got 2 major responsibilities. Check that. You got 3 major responsibilities. Your first responsibility is to yourself, because you can't be effective to anyone else if you ain't effective to yourself. That's when you build that strong relationship with you and the Lord. That's the first one. Then your second one is your responsibility to your family, okay? And then, of course, the third one is your responsibility to these kids who you are making an impact in their lives, okay? Trail, you will be there someday. So it's about you taking the blueprint. So you're following the blueprint of what Braxton is doing, and you're going to say, you know what? I'm going to be more prepared than Braxton was because Braxton was thrown in the fire. You getting the cheat code. That makes sense, okay? Number 3, the authoritative stage, okay? Parents may have ideas about always being unconditional with their love for the child and never wanting to get angry with them, okay? The focus is to be different on how your parents treated you. There's always a pecking order. I just used the pecking order with you. He's a head coach before you, so therefore, okay, now what you want to do is your focus is to be better than him, okay? It's the same thing with parenting. We have parents, and then what we said to ourselves is when we have children, we want to be better than our parents. And then now that we have children and our children can have children, our children's philosophy should be, I want to be better than my parents, okay? That's when you start talking about the authoritative stage. Sometimes we make that mistake because we say we don't want to get angry with our children. And the Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child, okay? Sometimes we do have to get angry with them. Sometimes we take that traumatic experience that we had coming up and we say, I don't want to put that on my child. But then what happens is if we don't put that on our child, that's why our child gets lost. We see that every day as leaders, which is why another reason why we're here at this roundtable. Okay? We're trying to figure out ways, how can we slide in and be of an assistant to those parents or lack thereof parenting that's not there, where we can come in and be that mentor and assist and help out, okay? Number 4, the interpretive stage. Now the child is no longer influenced only by the parents, but also by others outside the home. This is when we start that transition. And now we start that transition. As the child gets older, the parents realize that their child is not them. You are not me. You don't do what I do, okay? I've said that 1 trillion times to my children. You're going to say it 1 trillion times to yours as they up and coming. Bless your heart when you start having children, okay? All right? All right? Interpretation is the major task of this stage. Parents need to figure out how. We need to figure out how we can help the children, help our children, but at the same time still allow them to be them, okay? One of the terms that I try to be careful with, sometimes I can get a little too authoritative with that tough love, and I say, hey, I'm gonna let you fall and bust your face. I'm just gonna be there to pick you up. Maybe I should use different words than bust your face, because sometimes a child can hear bust face, and that's it. Selective listening, selective hearing. So we gotta be careful with that as well, okay? The interdependent stage, okay? With a world that is changing at a rapid pace and dangers are bigger, this is where it gets super tough, especially nowadays. Because here's the reality. The majority of the children on this earth, and when I say majority, I'm talking about more than 50%, you are being raised by social media, okay? All right? Just to share with you guys a couple of things that I learned recently about technology. Somebody can see that you read their messages or whatever, okay? I learned about algorithm. I learned about algorithm in the coach's office because of the joke that I like to say, and all of a sudden, they was like, where do you get this stuff from? And I'm like, I don't know, it just pops up. And so they told me algorithm. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. And then I found out what algorithm is. And so now I have fun with it. But that's the same thing that our children do. So guess what? If they go in and look at 3 or 4 fights and they click, I love this, click a love for that fight, they're going to get 6,000 more fights. So those are the things that we have to be prepared for when we talk about dangers are bigger in this world. And parents are often inexperienced to handle it. Why are we inexperienced to handle it? Yes, we're adults. Yes, we've been on this earth a long time, but guess what? If we're in our profession and we're working a 9 to 5, or we're working at those extra hours because in theory, we want more, and then also we want to do better for our children, then what happens is we spend less time with our children. So if we're spending less time with our children, somebody else is raising our children, which again, why it's important that we focus on becoming better mentors and better people in this world, men and women, that can help impact the lives of our youth, okay? Their relationship tends to alternate between closeness and separateness, okay? They separate more. I love you, I wanna hang out with you. You know what, you're getting on my nerves, going over there. I love you, I wanna hang out with you. You know what, you ain't got nothing to do with your friends. We start that tug of war because they start doing things that are different, that test our patience, test our gangster, and we say, you know what, let me get you away from me before I have to do some things, all right? And then the child starts developing a separate identity of their own. We still got to be key with that. We still got to be patient. One of the terms that I like to use is constant redirection. Constant redirection. Administrative term that I've learned, constant redirection. We have to be patient. We have to continue to work with them. We have to go with different strategies but that's why so many of them that we're working so hard with, because they're accustomed to people failing them. They're accustomed to people giving up on them. And so when folks give up on them, that's when that struggle becomes greater than what it should be, okay? The departure. As control over their children diminishes, they take on a new role as only being available when the child needs assistance without trying to control them, okay? Through acceptance of their child's separate identity, they begin with a new way to connect. That's that level, that's that tough level. That's that level where I'm there, okay? I'm in that situation right now. Coach Coleman is in that situation right now because we have young adults. So when you got young adults, you letting them live their lives. But guess what? They still, hey mom, hey dad, I got a flat. What do I do? Hey dad, I need to change my oil. What do I do? Okay? Hey mom, this came in the mail. Do you think I should get this credit card? But they want to live their life the way that they live their life. But those are the things and so what we have to do is we have to become more patient and more aggressive with our scenario of how are we going to connect that situation. Also, what I learned too, and this is great about being a leader in the community, being a mentor in the community. Now you start understanding that's when this is that stage where that child is like, you know what, mom and dad be tripping. That's where we have to fill in as aunts and uncles, okay? I want to eliminate the OG. OG makes me feel a little too old. I can deal with the uncle, okay? But the OG, what up, OG? Come on, man, call me up, all right? So we got to understand that's where it gets key at. Because a lot of times we're saying the same thing that those parents are saying. And we can't be scared of it. I know we can't go back to the village. I know I hashtag a lot of stuff on social media, the village. And the village ain't the village anymore. I remember there was a time when the neighbor could put hands on me if I was being disrespectful. We know that's not now. Because again, crazy world, dangerous times. Times are bigger and dangerous, more dangerous. But you still have to understand that we have to work this assistance with one another to help build our children, build our youth, okay? Topic question. Help me out, guys. Are peers and friends the same?
I don't think so. No.
They're not?
No, one got more influence than the other.
Okay, one got more influence than the other, all right? So ask yourself this without answering. How do you relay that to the individuals that you're making an impact over their lives? Don't answer that question. Think about it. You got to ask yourself, how do you relay that? Because you said that, you answered that, Brax, with authority, okay? Do you take that same authority when you're applying it to the youth? Because this is something that we deal with every day. We're dealing with this every day, okay? They fall into two categories: peers, which is what we know, okay? Peers, classmates you may or may not know very well, and friends, those you choose to spend time with, okay? Your peers are people like you in age or grade level. Whether you're good friends or not, peers influence or socialize you a great deal. You just said that, okay? So what are we doing as leaders to make sure that we engage in that? What are we doing to pay attention to that? One of the things I use in the classroom, I tell my students all the time, I tell my scholars all the time, I said, let me tell y'all something about me. I'm very nosy. You know how we do the old typical, the passing period. When the bell rings, you have to stand in the hallway and supervise the hallway. I tell my scholars all the time, while I'm in that hallway, I'm listening. I'm listening to your conversation. I'm listening to who you are, what you're saying, and how you're saying it. How appropriate is it? How inappropriate is it? I'm paying attention to all of that. And I said, and then the next thing I do is when I see when I hear what you say, I see what your actions are. So I'm not assuming anything about you. You're showing me through your actions who you are. And so now what I'm doing next is I'm creating a plan. How can I approach you when you kind of close to the cliff? That's what I like to call it. You're close to the cliff. You're in middle school. And you're acting like you're 25, 26 years old. We need to reel that thing in. But I also got to build a relationship with you to the point where you're not offended, you're not offensive, and then your parents are not quick to come and defend you for something that you're technically doing that's inappropriate or behaving inappropriate, okay? The debate within the debate, pressure versus influence. Here's another one for you. Peer influence is when a peer's act influences the others also to act in the same way, okay? That's influence. My act, my ways of what I'm doing, the things that I'm carrying, this influences you to do the things that you're doing. I didn't ask you to do anything, Trail. You're just seeing what I'm doing, and therefore you're going to start doing what I'm doing because I'm doing it, okay? Peer pressure is a forcible action. This involves a person directly asking, suggesting, persuading, and otherwise. So pressure, come on, Trail, I need you to do this with me. Come on, man. Come on, God, let's do this. If you don't do this, you a punk. If you don't do this, you scared. If you don't do this, you this. And then, of course, you know the anthem of what we use as males. See, I thought you loved me, girl. Yeah, I do love you. If you love me, then. But we have to be careful with that. That's why we have to educate our young ladies. We have to educate our young ladies as well because of the things that we know, because of who we are and what we do, okay? Statistics show. I'm not a fan of stats because stats can be misleading. Numbers can't, okay? But I just needed to pull this up because of a point that I wanted to make. In a Temple University study addressing relationship between age and resistance to peer pressure, researchers found out that children are most vulnerable to peer pressure between the ages of 10 and 14. Now, I can take that as a biased statement because I've been in middle school now for 6 years. And we see that. So as Coach Coleman and I are looking at that in the middle school, you're interacting with middle school because that's yours as well. That can be some very true information. And it's so funny because one of the terms that I use is, I say this is when their minds are still clay. That's why it's a blessing that I'm down on that level, because their minds are still clay in middle school. Intermediate school, middle school, their minds are clay. They're starting to identify. They're going through puberty. They're figuring out things. And so as they figure out things, as that brain starts to solidify, whatever that brain is doing when it solidifies, it's going to be hard for you to get away from it if it's something that's not what they should be doing, okay? So here's a question for you guys. Why do you think high school age children are not mentioned in this stat?
I think got to do what you just said. Their minds is more solidified than what they was at that age.
So by the time they get into high school, it's literally, okay, now I'm about attention.
I'm accustomed to
what
I already been doing.
Facts.
10 to 14, I can remember when I was 10 to 14, hang with my cousins we ain't got no business doing what we're supposed to be doing. I get to high school, it's like, I done made my mind up. Parents talk to me, I ain't doing the same stuff I was doing at that age.
And it wasn't even a difficult transition for you because you was already grown, okay? Also, as teens start to spend more time away from home, they feel they need to fit in with their peers. Now you're talking about the identity crisis. Now you're talking about the square peg and the circle in the round hole, okay? They develop a sense of self. It's about me. We call it selfish. It's a sense of self. That can be very different on how they saw themselves as a child. Mom and dad, I'm different. I'm grown. No, you're not. Then you stop using that term, okay? Teens who struggle with low self-esteem or anxiety can especially be susceptible to peer pressure. Got to understand that. Things that we know. Again, going back to the round table. Our focus at the round table is things that we know. Now we need to pull them back to the front part of our brain. We need to address those things that we already know. Nothing in this presentation I told you guys that you didn't know or you have not experienced already. But do we act upon them? That's what the village is about. That's what the focus is about, okay? So I got a couple of exercises that I like to do. So when I'm doing this character lesson, I give them this exercise. Growing up, do you think you as an individual had more influence from your parents or your peers / your generation? So I give them that question and I ask them to think about that, ponder that, write it down. Let's talk about it. Let's think, pair, share. Okay? Do you think parental influence comes from automatic authority? It's another question that I give them. Everything I do, I like to massage the brain cells. The focus is to make sure that they understand what it is that someone is asking them. Okay? Does peer influence come from rebellion? We have to be careful with that as a parent, if we believe so. Is it, you know what? I'm going to go with them just because you don't like them. And you express to me that you don't like them, and you express to me in a different way. And then you learn that triggering effects, they can be upset. Your children can be upset with something that you did in the past. And they're like, you know what? I'm going to look for a day to get back at my parents. Oh, you don't like this friend? That's my BFF. And we'll never think about that, know that, or understand that. We thinking that they're being rebellious about the friend. They're still upset about something that happened 2, 3, 4 years ago. There was probably a traumatic experience in their minds. Okay. Peers versus parents game. Instructions. Write down a habit you think you developed from a peer and something you think you developed from a parent. Again, I do these methods with them because I'm forcing them to, I'm massaging their brains. Let's use that brain. Let's start using that brain, because if I'm not using it from an instructional or perspective, they're using it from this perspective. Oh, wow, man, he just did this. Oh my God. Now they're being influenced by that. That's what's massaging their brains, okay? Take the scholar's habits and mix them together. Individually take out a habit, read it, and ask the entire class to vote on whether they think that habit was developed from a peer and a parent. So what I have them do is I have them do parent and a peer, and I try to make them write it on the same type of paper as much as possible. Then I get them all. So now we have Braxton's perspective, we have Trail's perspective, we have Coach Coleman's perspective, we have Coach Williams' perspective, we have Free's perspective, we have Josh's perspective. We mix them all up, and then now what you're doing is, because again, you start understanding how other people think. When you start understanding how other people think, that allows you a different perspective than what you have. It gives us perspective instead of assumption, okay? And then what I do at the end is I got a couple of visuals, and depending on then the ambience of the crowd, of the audience, I'll take one of those, make them flexible. If I got this particular type of crowd, I may use this visual. If I got this type of audience, I may use this visual. And so I usually start off with it. So I give them something to look at. It's about 5 minutes, probably 5 to 7 minutes. They end up talking. So the two biggest things that I have in each character lesson is I have a spiritual brain teaser at the beginning, and then I probably go into a visual before I actually go into the presentation. But I save these on my slides at the end, just in case that's something that you guys wanted to do, okay? So that's my presentation for peers versus parents. Man, appreciate it, and I hope you guys learned something from it.
Yeah.
All right.